So we're about an hour and 10, hour and 8 minutes away from trading. And boy, there's a lot going on today for a Tuesday. Let's start with taxes in the US. Taxes become due tomorrow. So if you haven't worked on your taxes, today might be a good day to spend some time on that. We've seen bank earnings come in from Citi and Bank of America, both beating expectations. So Wall Street banks have effectively had a great first quarter, unaffected by tariffs. But remember, tariffs really, Liberation Day wasn't until April the 2nd, and that was after the first quarter. The market started to turn on February 19th in anticipation and with some announcements around tariffs, but then also some pullbacks. And that's when we started this whole tariff inconsistent conversation. But nevertheless, they've leveraged that inconsistency and volatility and uncertainty, and they've had incredible trading profits across the big banks. So Citi, Bank of America, both posted earnings this morning that that beat expectations. If we take a look at the greater markets today and the futures, you can see that we're in the red across the board. Looks like could be off to a red start, and we'll have to see where that takes us. I'm not going to make any predictions today, but um, I do feel that there's the potential for today to be on the lower side and maybe a more of a red day, but maybe muted depending on what happens and all of the things that could come out throughout the day. We'll have to wait and see what happens. There's always opportunities, and we'll get into what some of those are in just a minute as we look through the Yahoo Finance app. So if we turn our attention over to the Yahoo Finance app, take a look at the top bar here. You can see crude is down 45 cents, so just around $61 a barrel for crude futures out to May 25th. So at least it's back in the 60s. But it's definitely in the low 60s. And for oil producers to drill, baby, drill, this price has to get back up into the high 70s, if not mid 80s. So we'll wait to see whether that turns at some point. You can also see that the VIX is climbing, was climbing. It's now dropped 19.19 today. So 19 basis points. It's down at just below 31. I think we're still going to see this pop up into the 40s and 50s within the next couple of months as we go through this tariff renegotiation and negotiation cycle with all the countries coming to kiss the ring of the president right now. And just give up everything from their countries for him, which is a big misconception, but that's the message coming out of the White House. Scrolling down to health and retail, I don't expect any big numbers in health and retail right now. If anything, in the long term, I think retail is going to get hit hard. What we may see is we may see that retail is actually quite strong in the first quarter as we get these earnings, but I think we're going to see the exact opposite come the second quarter. So, although what we're hearing out of all the Wall Street banks is everything's on track, I think we're going to be fine. Yes, there's volatility. There are concerns around tariffs, but with the 90-day pause, I think we're okay. It could just be delaying the inevitable because as consumer sentiment has shifted, if it doesn't shift back, then the US is likely heading into a recession, and it could get hit very hard come Q3 earnings and those announcements. So that's what we want to be keeping an eye on because we want to be ahead of that so that we don't get burned and we can go to cash or be ready to make investments at much lower entry points and sell what we have that's in the accounts. So that would be my thinking going into this quarter and the coming quarters. We've gotten through most of the big bank earnings and the financial trading firms, not all of them, but a lot of them. And we've had positive news. But now, as we start to hear maybe from some of the regional banks, I think that story will shift. And as we start to hear from other sectors, I think it will shift as well. Hey, if you're liking these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. I put one out a day that talks about what's going to happen in the market that day, what the market narrative is. I'd love a like and a comment if you would take the time to do that. be happy to share with you my knowledge and expertise in what's going on in the financial landscape and the greater economy, America and worldwide. We turn our attention to transports. JB Hunt announces today. I don't expect the numbers here will be good. The stock has been beaten up. This was at 180 a couple months ago. It is now down below 140. I don't see the numbers being that positive as we hear about shipments being delayed. We hear about a lot of different things to do with that transport sector, both worldwide global container shipments being down, and that's going to impact obviously trucking in America, but also just consumer sentiment and business sentiment. So I think a lot of people have put purchases on hold, waiting for things to play out, and that's going to impact JB Hunt. I'd expect some bad earnings coming out of JB Hunt today, and that's my belief going into that. I'm staying away from that stock right now. Then we get into oil, and oil with where it is, crude futures for May 25th being just around the $61 mark. Not a lot of excitement in that industry. If you want stability, you might look at Vistra and Con Ed on the utility side. That's where you might find some better stability, but I would be very leery around some of the other oil stocks at this point. Now, that could shift at any time with an announcement or a truth coming out of the White House, but that's where we are right now. Technology had a pretty good day yesterday. A lot of green on the screen coming out of that um, very confusing message Friday and then shift on Saturday or Sunday. So the announcement that there would be some exemptions out of China that where tariffs wouldn't apply to iPhones and semiconductors, and then a comment that no, they're still going to have tariffs, but they're just going to be put into a different bucket. And then the comment that they're analyzing semiconductors as well as pharmaceuticals, and there will be tariffs. So just overall, a great deal of confusion, but nevertheless, it ended up turning into more of a positive message. Apple was certainly up on the day, although it's falling right now. There's a bit of a hidden gem in this list, and they announced Thursday after market close, and that is Netflix. If we scroll down and take a look at Netflix, here we go. Netflix had a phenomenal day yesterday, and it looks like it's on track to repeat that performance today. So heading into earnings at end of day Thursday. Now, the one risk here is that it's going to announce after market close. The markets are closed on Friday, won't reopen until the following week. So whether that announcement gets muted by the reopen remains to be seen. You may want to sell in the aftermarket if it does pop. I think the earnings report is going to be strong out of Netflix on Thursday because I think that this is a fairly small expense to the average consumer, and we may see a growth in subscribers, but I think we'll also see a growth in their ads offering and their subscription offering with the ads and or advertisements. And that's been a big area of growth for them that has really accelerated that stock forward. So I'm pretty bullish on Netflix going forward, but we'll have to wait and see what it comes out with. Then we get back to the Meta, and Meta's in court right now. Zuckerberg testified yesterday in DC in the antitrust case where the US may look at severing off WhatsApp and Instagram from Facebook or within Meta due to what it believes to be anti-competitive behavior, maybe being too large in that social media space. So they're making their arguments against that. I'm never a big fan of those cases and government intervention in that area. And for the most part, they really haven't worked that well in the past if you look at other examples. Although the results of this will probably have an impact on the Google case, which hasn't started yet. So people are watching that thinking that if they do force a breakup here, and again, Zuckerberg has done a great job. He's to kiss up to Trump. He has bought a house in DC. He's spending more time in DC. He's been down to Mar-a-Lago to have dinner with President Trump prior to him getting into the office, but after the win, he's made donations. He's been to the inauguration. So he's doing what all the other tech executives are doing and doing his part to ensure that he gets some FaceTime and some visibility and that the president will take his calls. So you never know what could happen there. I mean, Apple just got an exemption on iPhones, and Tim Cook spent a lot of money and time with the president. So the same is possible here, and the same is possible for Google with what its CEO has been doing as well. Then we get down a little further, and what I'm surprised at is Nvidia this morning. Nvidia is off 61 cents. Now, it doesn't mean a lot in the pre market, but if you take a look at Truth Social, Donald Trump just posted this morning about his success in getting NVIDIA to commit half a trillion, $500 billion to build AI supercomputers in the United States exclusively. So he's obviously quite happy about that. I don't think he truly understands what NVIDIA does, but nevertheless, that post shows that NVIDIA may have some goodwill with Donald Trump and the administration, and yet the stock's not really reflecting that. So we'll see. I think that's going to turn around and actually come up a little bit today, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. TSM, another one that's made commitments to the US, is way below the price I was expecting it was going to get to, and it announces this week as well. It announces Thursday. So be interesting to see this. There's also ASML announcing tomorrow in the early morning because they're out of the Netherlands. And that will be an interesting one that will probably be a good predictor of what's going to happen in terms of results with TSM. I'm pretty confident that the results from TSMC are going to be positive. And I think it's probably an interesting time to look at acquiring and putting some of that into your portfolio for this week ahead of earnings, because I do think that those will be quite positive. Then we get into financials. Financials have had a pretty good run this week. You can see Citi's up this morning after earnings. I don't follow Bank of America, but it's up as well. You've got your other big names, JP Morgan off $1 today in the pre-market. Raymond James, which finished down yesterday, oddly enough, when most of the others were in the green. M&T had results this week. They weren't great, so nothing really happened there, but it basically closed around where it opened. It looks like it's up half a buck today. Morgan Stanley up a little under $1. Goldman down. It was down more this morning. It was down almost $2 or $3 in earlier trading, now down 27 cents, but really didn't have a huge day yesterday. I mean, it closed up 950, but only about 2% on some of the best earnings ever. I think another good name to keep an eye on that I'm looking at is Charles Schwab. It was up and down yesterday, closing down, but only 4 cents. It's down slightly in the pre-market now. And I think going into earnings, which are coming up in 2 days as well, this is going to be one where I think we're going to see some positive results out of Charles Schwab. Finally, going back to tariffs, one of the big news announcements today was from Boeing, and I don't think we're going to see it here in the news, but if we flip back over to the news, China halted orders on Boeing jet deliveries. And so we can see another impact of these tariffs, even though some have been pulled back, the ones against China obviously have not, is going to have an impact on American companies, and that's going to have a ripple effect. So Boeing is a huge manufacturer in the US, and China represents a huge component of its market. So when Boeing loses customers in its one of its largest markets like China, it's going to have a massive effect on this stock. And I'm surprised it's only down 2.79% right now. I think it's going to fall further, and it will be interesting to see how the US administration tackles this one. The challenge China has is they don't have their own large jet producer at this time, and I'm sure it's something they're working on. They've certainly been able to take over the shipping business and building large container ships, and they own that market. But we haven't seen huge advancements into the airline space. So that could be something underway that we're just not aware of within China. But it is something that they're going to need to build, or they could look at then moving and shifting their business over to Airbus out of France, and that could certainly be a boost for Airbus's business going forward. So that's where we are today on the 15th. Good luck in your trades today. Get your taxes done if you haven't done them and you're in the US, and we'll talk to you throughout the day. Good luck in your trades. If you like the videos, please hit the like and subscribe button.